afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. With our long Vermont winters, many of us dream about a visit to the tropics right about now. Well, that's what we have for you today. If you're fortunate to head south for vacation or for an extended period, our guest today is going to show you some of the common flowers, shrubs, and trees you may see in Florida. To take us on a trip to the tropics is UVM Extension horticulturalist Leonard Perry. Great to see you again.
Good to
Looking
be back.
forward to this.
Well, I am too. It's actually fun putting all these together. I spent a lot of time just looking at these tropical pictures. I wanted to share those basically of a couple of gardens in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area. We'll take a look at, and then a lot of the plants. If you just need a refreshment this time of the year, inspiration, or if you ever go down there, it's fun to see what's in bloom. So.
Let's start with the gardens.
Okay, let's look at those first. First we'll start with one here, Sunken Gardens in St. Petersburg, Florida, right downtown, historic gardens. This is all outside, of course. You think it's in a conservatory in our house. Out there, it's outside. Most of these are taken in springtime in May. There are a few others we'll show you that weren't, but this is just, you know, this little waterway with, you know, things cascading over and things in bloom. A lot of greenery. Just, this time of year with the snow outside, this is just great to see. And this bamboo, looking up, a lot of different types of bamboos, and these tall ones, 40, 50 feet tall, you know, several inches across. Just amazing to look up through those and see the light coming through. Another path with tropical plants, some palms. And we'll take a look at the one on the right, kind of bright colored plant. We'll take a look a little closer. This is called the Hawaiian Thai. Obviously, it grows in Hawaii too, but we may know it as a house plant. It's a cordyline. It's also called good luck plant, but I just love the light coming through from the back, those reddish leaves, and here's a lot of other Thai plants. You may have those inside here. Again, a lot of these plants we grow inside, but just shows you the range, a lot of variegations, creamy, dark color, chocolate color, just a lot of different types of cordyline or Thai plants. Now this is another path there at the Sunken Gardens in St. Petersburg. On the right, those are called elephant ears. They look kind of like it. We grow those outside in warm summers up here. And inside there's one we grow, but growing outside, huge shrub here. Take a little closer look at that because this is a fun plant. It's called the yellow shrimp plant. The original one is red, has flowers that look kind of like shrimps, but this is a yellow form, but a plant you see growing outside down in central Florida. Here's another picture of the Sunken Gardens, a nice lawn with thick long grasses, palm trees. They're actually philodendrons growing up those trees outdoors year-round.
Wow.
And we'll take a closer look at that big tree right in the center. That's a pretty amazing one. It's called Angel's Trumpet. There's another one called Tour that has upward-facing flowers, but these hang down, Brugmansia. Some people, you may see these up here in the summertime. People grow them as a specimen plant in a container. Obviously, you have to bring those in, but you can have that up here, a smaller version, and bring inside over winter. So Angel's Trumpet. Another picture there at the Sunken Gardens. I wanted to show this because one, a little screened house where you can grow plants in and have gazebos down there, but that tree is a live oak. A lot of people kid and say, well, what are the others dead? But no, that's just the name of it, live oak. Smaller leaves, but it spreads out, and that's the one you often see Spanish moss in. It's a very typical southern tree, quite a big one. Orchids, just growing outside under the last structure most of the year. Obviously winter they probably bring them in, but just in clay pots hanging there in some shade. But just fun to see all the orchids that you can grow in the subtropics down in Florida and along the Gulf Coast. Now this path again looks very tropical with all these big green leaves and a lot of green, a lot of big, you know.
Yeah.
But there's some color too, and we'll take a closer look. This is bougainvillea. And it's actually one you see quite a bit down there. It's actually a vine. Here you see a reddish form. The original one was that purple we saw, but you see a lot of this red down there growing on a fence here. Makes a great screen. Again, this is in springtime. You see it actually pruned as a hedge, as in this condo complex down near the Gulf Coast. You see it growing in suburbs and pruned like that as well. And then close up you can see the flowers are just very bright and have a little white center to them. But bougainvillea, as you can see there, it's just a really neat one. It does have thorns. You have to be careful when you're pruning that or looking at it or smelling it.
So tell us about the second garden that you visited near St. Petersburg.
Okay, the other garden is due west of Tampa. It's actually north of St. Petersburg in Largo, Florida. It's right near the Gulf Coast, right near the water, in fact, and it's the Florida Botanical Gardens. Brought some pictures of those, and again, it's just right near the water, but here, hanging down that gray, that's Spanish moss.
What is Spanish moss?
It's actually a plant. It's an epiphyte. It grows in trees. There's a whole group of tillandsias, that's a genus. sometimes I've only once or twice seen the little greenish flowers in those, but it doesn't really have flowers, but just hangs down and feeds off the moisture it gets out of the air, and it just looks wonderful. It doesn't really hurt the trees. But continuing at the Florida Botanic Gardens, right outside the main building, which actually houses their extension office, which is kind of cool. They have a lot of programs there. They have a lot of education in this area, which consists of raised beds, herb gardens, medicinal plants, tropical plants, just a lot of different plants, all labeled well, which you can see. The path going through, one of the amazing things is these masses of ground covers. In the foreground, that's the peace lily or spathiphyllum. Like I have a plant at home, inside. You know, here's a whole bed growing outside, all in bloom with these white flowers. Just amazing. Still can't get over seeing all these. They do have a garden with some of the economic plants. Plants are edible. Of course, the pineapple, this is what the plant looks like. Haven't seen it growing. Like you see just fields like this in Hawaii, in Southeast Asia. A little pineapple starting to form there. Of course, will get a lot bigger. But it's kind of fun, too. They have a whole grove of different types of bananas you can walk through to get the feel of walking through say, a banana plantation. And we'll take a closer look at some of the fruit. Obviously, you know, bananas, and they come and grow on these stalks that kind of hang out of the leaves. And those actually come from kind of an unusual looking flower. It's that reddish fat part, and then these little yellow bits that come up around the side, and those are what make the bananas that you see down below. Oh, wow. So that's how the bananas form, and those are kind of plants that grows on. Papaya you see in stores, they're kind of fun because they just hang off this trunk up into a tree like that and turn color when they're ripe. Loofah gourd, you use the loofah sponges in the shower. Yep. Well, that's how it grows, like a gourd, and you just peel that outer skin off and you have that loofah inside you can use. So it's kind of fun to see how these plants grow. And this neem tree, a lot of cosmetic shampoos and things you may see the neem product, but neem is also a very popular insecticide you use out. It's a botanical that very friendly to the environment, but that's a real nice plant just to see where it comes from. Now that's all in the first part. In the back half of this Florida Botanic Gardens in Largo, separated by this waterway, has a sign, "Watch for alligators." I did. I never saw one. Twice I've been there, but that's kind of, you know, where they grow. But if you and you find them in there, but in the back is several formal gardens, you know, that you'd expect to see more natural, but they're really nice. And they have a tropical garden here that's actually a bird of paradise on the left, not in bloom, but in a palm tree. Here's another formal bed with, these are begonias growing outside. Again, this is in May, so in springtime. A lot of these annuals kind of go by sometimes in the summer. It gets so hot. But especially in the spring and the fall, you see a lot of these in palm trees, a whole palm court. They have weddings out here, so just quite a big garden, a lot there.
A lot to learn.
There is a lot, you know, you can really learn a lot.
I guess palm trees are sort of the symbol of warm weather.
They are. They're just, you think about Florida and you think about palm trees. And so you see a lot of different palm trees, and we saw some there, but I'll just show a couple more. And there's lots of other trees that you will see in there, especially in spring and bloom before the real heat sets in Florida. So brought some pictures of just a few of these trees that you might see down there. The first one of my favorite, you see, it's a very blue palm tree.
That's pretty.
It leaves down near the bottom, but grows 20, 30 feet high, and this is a Bismarck palm. There's several of these blue palms, and they just are very striking in the landscape against all other green. A spindle palm has a trunk that kind of is a spindle shape, which is, you know, one of the different types, just to show some of the variety. Now, getting into some of the flowering trees, this is actually the lay flower. If you've ever been to Hawaii or know the lays, it's made of these. So it grows there, where it's called the plumeria. In the Frangipani is what it's called, more in the Gulf area in the West Indies and Caribbean. So just a very beautiful plant. This is one that just, you know, knocks your socks off when you see this out there, 20, 30 feet high and the same wide kind of flat top. This is called, obviously, the flame tree, just bright red. Take a closer look. Royal Ponciana is another name you see that as, but very finely cut leaves, as you see there, but these bright red flowers. Now, another one's very similar is the jacaranda. That's another one that grows actually much taller, but very similar type leaves, but again, one you see with all these blue flowers, and you just say, what is that?
Now, when do these bloom?
Now, this is all in springtime in May. And this is one you see right through the winter in the Mid-South, or this was, again, caught a few late flowers in May down in Florida, but the southern magnolia, very glossy dark green leaves, big white flowers, several, quite a few inches across, 6, 8 inches across, very fragrant, very nice perfumey fragrance. Yeah, very dramatic kind of plant, and it can get quite big over time too, but that's a very nice specimen plant for landscapes down there.
So some of the trees are really just stunning, but there are also some colorful shrubs that people can see in Florida as well.
There really are, Judy, and it's amazing because you think about some of those early slides. When you think tropics, you think, palms and those big green leaves and lots of green, but it's amazing. There is a lot of color too. And so I brought a few pictures of some of those. So again, I was going around and said, what are these? Or growing up in the South, I was very familiar with this one, the crepe myrtle. And this is one that's just, you see quite a bit. It's got quite a few of the real nice bark and a lot of different color flowers, different types of colors, as does the oleander, pinks and reds and whites. But again, a large shrub. Crepe myrtle can actually almost be a small tree. Weeping bottlebrush, there's some upright ones, but the flowers look like bottle brushes. And these are generally red or pinkish. Callistemon is the genus for that. We saw that flame tree earlier. This is a dwarf version of that. It grows as a large shrub, and that's the dwarf Ponciana. And then this is one you see later in the summer in bloom. Crepe myrtle, oleander you see in summer bloom. Sea grape you see with these little fruits, look like little grapes. You see that right growing on the seashore, right along the water. So if you're ever at the beach down there later in the summer in the heat and you see this plant with the big leaves and those little fruits, that's the sea grape.
And so what about perennials?
Okay, perennials. Again, they're very different than the perennials we have up here. Just want to give people a highlight of some of the key ones you might see down there, starting with the hibiscus, which is different than the hibiscus we grow out here. This is one that grows inside. A lot of people are familiar with that, but you see it as a big shrub there. The chenille plant, again, an indoor plant here with not too big, couple 3 feet, but these flowers that just kind of hang down, droop down. More upright little plant, couple feet high, the flamingo flower with these pink flowers, appropriately named. Justicia is that one. This is in the foreground, the Ruellia. This is just the Mexican petunia, just a great plant. I've seen it growing in the southwest and deserts. Here it's in Florida. I grow it in water up here and bring it in over winter. It's just serves many types of climates. In the back is the octopus plant or Schefflera umbrella plant that we grow indoors, growing outside there. It's a landscape plant. The Cape Leadwort, beautiful blue flowers, one of the few with that. And again, in springtime into early summer, you see that in bloom. Plumbago down there as a shrub, 2 to 3 feet high, and that would go really nice with this one, the Alamanda, which can be pruned as a shrub. It's more a vine, kind of a medicinal, I think, odor to the flowers. Not particularly attractive to me, but the flowers are very striking, big and yellow. And this is the firecracker plant. You see that a lot in landscapes down there with the smaller leaves. It adapts really well to dry climates as well. So again, one of those plants you see in both dry and humid. But here's the flowers on the firecracker plant. Just again, a nice shrub for landscapes. This is actually not a palm. It's called cardboard palm. It's a cycad. Those are some of the earliest plants, go back to the dinosaurs. Crotons we grow outside here in summertime. Here's a mass of them down there. And then we have one of the most common ground covers, the lily turf, or liriope, down there. And then the caladium, again, one we grow in pots up here in summertime. Really likes it in Florida. It's a popular plant down there.
And our houseplants, too, or outside plants in Florida.
There are, and we've seen some. I just have a few at the end here to show real quick, just so people can see some of our houseplants growing outside. The variegated Schefflera is one that just grows as a shrub down there. We have just little ones in pots here. A couple of philodendrons. This is a newer one called Xanadu, kind of a very clumping type form, and a larger one, a cutleaf philodendron, just to show a couple in landscapes. The vase plant is a bromeliad. It's kind of vase-shaped leaves. The water gets trapped in there and it feeds off of that. And here's the one in flower, which you don't often see. Lemon lime Dracaena, I've got that at home.
Right.
Here it is out in the landscape. And then lastly, the Sansevieria, the mother-in-law's tongue, but growing as a ground cover in landscapes there.
Now, if people want to see more, what should they do?
Well, they can go to my website. I've got some pictures of some of these tropical gardens as well as a lot of other types of gardens, information on growing house plants, and that's perrysperennials.info on the web.
Take a little vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks a lot, Leonard.
Yeah.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.